Welcome to the 4th episode of Custom Track Review, the show where we review custom tracks. I need a better slogan. My name is Justin, and today we're going to be looking at Mario Kart Wii custom content released in May of 2020. Now hold your horses, because I've got some explaining to do. Last episode I reviewed 15 custom tracks, and it took me 50 minutes. I appreciate everyone that watched the whole video, but I can understand that in a way it could drag on. So this time around I'm going to be choosing a month, and I'll try and get through more tracks quicker. I've also wanted to cover a few creations without a whole in-depth analysis, because sometimes if I see something I don't usually cover that I find worth mentioning, I can't really bring it up. So this will be more of an overview of most of the happenings on the wiki. If you want the complete list, I'd recommend just going on the website and giving it a look yourself. This video is just everything that I personally found interesting. And I've also gotten a bit of flack for labeling tracks as 10 out of 10s as easily as I do, which I definitely understand. Originally I wanted it as just a way to indicate that a track should go in CTGP, but then I realized I would prefer any track over Mushroom Peaks, so my rating scale will be more tied with how I personally feel. If a track gets 10 out of 10 now, that means it's absolutely perfect. Not a lot of tracks have reached that status for me. And another note, after I wrote out the majority of the script, I noticed that I had 20 tracks I wanted to cover within the first 13 days, so this won't be a full month review, just the start of it. If the second half of the month interests me, I might cover it in another video, but for now, let's just stick to the first half, and let's begin with day 1. Okay, so just a quick warning, I know I don't usually do face cam for this series, but I just wanted to create a quick warning because it's taken me so long to edit this video from lack of motivation that track creators have already updated the tracks I've talked about in this video, and I don't want to be reviewing outdated tracks, so I'll still keep what I said back then, but I will also interject with a few of my new thoughts on the tracks through Facecam, so you guys can understand what these new updates have to offer and what my new review scores for the tracks would be. On May 1st, we had 2 distribution updates. Moving on to May 2nd, which was a little more eventful, I'd say, we got a texture character update by Jasperr to his God Eater Funky, which now goes over all vehicles that Funky Kong uses. I'll be using the character texture for all the tracks in case you are interested. The next thing to cover on the 2nd is the new track Sunset Mountain by NikoPlays. The overview describes it as a custom track created by NikoPlays. Not too informative, but let's see what the track is like. We started off very strong, let me say. I really love the design here. It drives very well. All the turns are silky smooth, the ramps are in the right spots, it's very intuitive, you never feel lost, and it's the perfect length for a track like this. It's a really good difficulty as well, with enemies and objects utilized well, creating a bit of a challenge but nothing unfair or unavoidable. This has good shortcuts, and I'm a fan of the whole theme as well. In my opinion, this would work very well online against other players, and I could definitely see other packs picking this up as it is very strong design-wise. I've not mentioned the visuals because I do think they are a little lacking, especially because of the impact that the design really creates. It's not terrible or horrible, nor does it affect the design all too much, but some of the visuals do feel a little washed out, and the cave section specifically is a little bright. It could use a few more background elements as well. Picture this though. Say ZPL or Jasperr, or who knows, both of them, give this a complete visual overhaul, or even Bear with similar visuals to his saltwater length track from CT Review 3. And now we have a true winner on our hands. This could go down as one of the greatest custom tracks of all time. I may be exaggerating a bit, but other than the visuals, I only have one problem, and that's the ending. It's not trickable, and it bugs me every time I go over it, but it's okay. It's okay, it just needs to be fixed. It's all good though. The track as it is though is insane, and I do hope the visuals can be improved in the future. I'm going with a 9 out of 10 for this one. I can see this being added to CTGP as it is, but they'd probably wait for a visual update before letting it in. Moving on to May 3rd, where there still wasn't too much to cover, but there was a new track, a beta version of X Circuit released by Callum. The overview states this as Callum's first custom track. The track originally started as a joke and a test track, however as creation continued, the author wanted to make a more serious track which would give competitive races. Callum also released a hotfix of the track, fixing wall collisions, so that is the version we will be playing. Let's go try it out. I find this to be a promising debut. Like the last one, it's a track that doesn't really try to cater to its visuals and is very design-centric, which is what you should expect from competitive players, which I know Callum is one. The track drives decently and it has a pretty good use of objects to spice up the track a little, like the chain shop, Koopas, Monty Moles. I also like the theme Callum chose with the castle and the simple grass and road textures. The few problems I do have though are in the design itself actually. Specifically, the ramp is sort of blind. If you're on the right half of it going straight, it doesn't land you on the other ramp, which is a little annoying. As well, the design as a whole isn't the strongest with 4 180-degree turns, which would be perfectly fine had they not been so tight. This leads to massive blind turns, which can affect the race pretty heavily, especially on the last and second turn, where you can hit the chain chomp because you don't know where it is, and the last turn can be confusing on the first run. And the shortcut itself on the third section I don't think is faster, so I'm not sure why the mud is there. It might make more sense if there's a boost panel over the mud, but right now I'm pretty sure it's 100% slower. In my opinion though, this is very strong and a promising debut track, which really shows everyone what Callum is aiming to make. I hope he continues to make tracks and improve at it both visually and design wise. I'm going with a 7.5 out of 10 for this one. I wouldn't complain if it was added to CTGP, but that probably won't happen since CTGP staff usually want very interesting and dynamic new tracks. Still, I can see it being an easy add for other distributions. Now let's move on to May 4th. I feel I have to mention the CT Jams. CT Jams are competitions between track creators to see who can make the best track in 3 to 4 days, revolving around a theme given to them. You may be aware from the last video I released where I showcased my submission. It does feel a little weird to go over these tracks again since, well, I was in a competition against them, so I'm not really going to dive deep into these tracks. On the same day though, we got another interesting track that you guys have probably already seen, the RC1 and RC2 versions of Camp Kartigan released by MrFluffy. The overview describes this track as MrFluffy's first custom track. It offers an early morning tour of the track, which is a nature park located in the hills. Racers drive along the multiple campgrounds, hop onto the nearby highway, or take the safer elevated route, and pass by the scenic waterfall. The track itself began development in July 2018. After multiple hiatuses and model reworks, it was publicly released in May 2020, nearly 2 years later. As suggested by the name, this track was designed to accommodate the features of karts, both in its layout and road width. Another debut track to preview, but you might have already seen this in Troy's charity livestream where they showcased this track with some positive reviews, but I have not played it yet and I want to put in my 2 cents. And for the record, RC1 was released on the 4th, but we'll be playing RC2, which was released on the 10th. Anyways, let's give it a whirl. Yeah, this is an insane debut. I was hearing people talk about this being the best debut of all time. I can't say it's completely true since I haven't kept up with all debuts, but wow, this track is both amazing in a visual sense and in its design. Stunning visuals that come together to make a cohesive and somewhat unique theme. Won't say it's completely original, but that's irrelevant. Just a phenomenal design. I mean, every single turn feels smooth and fun to drive, along with this having amazing and well thought out shortcuts that cut off just the right amount. A perfect difficulty with this not being a breeze, but nowhere near difficult or unfair. A very solid length. This track doesn't drag on, but also doesn't end too soon either. There are changes visually as you go through the track so your eyes aren't bored with nothing to look at. Really good use of objects both in the scenery and on the track as obstacles themselves. Valuable path switches that are worth something, and the whole track is so intuitive it rivals Nintendo at their own game. This track just feels realistic, and the only issue is the minor collision issues on a few turns that will most likely be patched in the next update, because yes, MrFluffy has already planned an update for this, and there is no doubt in my mind that it will be a 10 out of 10 by the end of it. Insane. I have no idea how MrFluffy is going to live up to this track on this next release, but I hope that he continues to make amazing tracks like these. I'm feeling a 9.5 out of 10 for this one. It will for sure go into CTGP, so I'm not even going to make a comment on that. So yes, I have to interject because Camp Kartigan actually already got its version 1.0 update that I was mentioning, and it was on the 17th of May, and it says added custom maps, extend the fence and invisible wall along the elevated route, fix most instances of bullet bills crashing into walls, brighten shadows, added vertex colors, adjusted model, and adjusted the KMP. So what I mentioned in the video as criticism was the minor collision issues, and I was referring to the boardwalk section at the end. It was a little bumpy. I was nitpicking a little bit though, so I mean, with the version 1.0, it does look a little more lively with the visuals. You know, the vertex colors and the shadows being brightened does make it look a lot brighter and a lot nicer. Technically, the collision issues that I mentioned are still present in the update, but honestly, I was nitpicking a little bit, so, I mean, it was a very high 9.5, and that's probably where I'm going to sell at. I'll still settle at a 9.5 until that collision is just a little smoother and a lot nicer to go off of, but honestly, it's like just a little bit off of 10. Like, I could just give it a 10 out of 10, honestly. Moving on to May 5th, we saw a lot of activity from creators, though some of it was the same CTGM I was talking about earlier. Looking past that though, I saw two interesting releases this day. The first being Speedwagon and Speedway were designed by Punis and Jasperr and created by Toxic Prime. The overview says it uses a model from the SketchUp 3D warehouse created by Punis. A few years after the model was posted, Jasperr edited the model and gave it to the author who made the track playable. The name of the track was originally Rapid Speedway, but it was changed during development. I have seen the model on the warehouse before, so I'm interested to see how it plays in game. Let's check it out. I mean, it's decent, but in my opinion, that's all it really is. I'd say it'd work in a CT distribution, like it works fine, but there's a combination of things that I'm not a huge fan of. At least it is functional, but firstly, I don't think the original model that Toxic Prime had to work with was necessarily that interesting. It's alright, but it is a little repetitive, echoing the same issues you can find in some Punis tracks like Snowy Circuit 2. There's not many background elements, I'm not a huge fan of the texturing, it looks a little grainy, and you can't trick off that one spot and it annoys me. There's also no invisible walls over the fences, and the checkpoints could have been placed a lot better. Wait a second, why are you bringing up the checkpoints? Oh, I see where this is going. Yep, there is an ultra shortcut on this track. It's actually surprisingly precise, which I wouldn't have expected. It took me an hour to fully understand what to do, and even then I still don't know what exactly was going on. There's probably a faster way to do this, but yeah, it saves quite a bit of time. I'm feeling 6 out of 10 for this one. It would work in a CT distribution like MKW Hack Pack, but major changes would have to be made to the model to make this CTGP worthy, in my opinion. On the same day, we also saw another track released by CPL titled Meadow Isle. The overview doesn't give us any more information than that, so let's just try the track for ourselves. This is a great track visually. It's even good layout wise too. A solid design that drives pretty good. There are no noticeable huge issues that I could see in the track. This is one of the more pack ready courses that could even go in something like CTGP. Good shortcuts and no very noticeable mistakes in a technical sense. I think all the minor issues are design related. There is a lack of background elements, and I think there could be more added to make it feel more realistic. The cloud mushrooms are a little weird to go off of. The last one is angled in a strange way. It's not too huge of an issue, but it might be better to shift it a little, and this is just a personal thing, but I think 4 Canids is pushing it. I won't lower the score much because of it though. Yeah, just a solid track. It's in beta, so I'll keep my eyes peeled for whenever CPL decides to update it, assuming he does want to, of course. I'm feeling a 9 out of 10 for this one. I'm assuming CTGP will wait until it's out of beta to put it in, but I see it working fine as it is right now in other packs. Moving on to May 6th, there wasn't an abnormal amount of activity, but there were 5 custom creations that interested me. Let's go through them all. The first is a version 7.0 update to a track titled Koopa Paratroopa Castle by, sorry if I butcher this, Kinopiokuppa. The overview says it takes place in a castle that is supposedly themed around Koopa Paratroopa. Despite being in version 7.0, it's actually the first time the track's been updated in 4 years, with it being a remake from scratch. Let's take a look at the track. Yeah, I don't have much to say about this. It's a decent track visually, decent track gameplay wise, and my suggestions would be a little more variation on the ending turn visually or in terms of the track layout, and it could use some background elements. Is that really all I got? Wow. Anyways, I'm feeling a 6.5 out of 10 on this one. don't think it's interesting enough to warrant a CTGP slot, even though it could be considered better than most, but I can definitely see this as a good and safe addition to most other track packs wanting to fill slots with tracks that aren't bad. We also got 3 custom tracks from the same person. The first 3 they uploaded to the site, in fact, and the creator is HackerCop. The first one I'll talk about is Bowser's Ghost Valley. The overview describes this as HackerCop's 3rd custom track. It features gothic arches in the background and booze in the underground road. I realize that it says this is the 3rd, but they were all uploaded on the same day, so who cares? Let's take a look. This track lags pretty bad, and I don't know why since it's relatively simple. As you might have guessed from the gameplay though, it's also confusing with blind jumps and turns, and the texturing is not that appealing. The track also is a little buggy, mainly when you jump down to the bunker area. While this certainly isn't perfect, I see a good future for this track. Whether HackerCop improves a lot since this track, or another established creator sees what this track could hold and puts their spin on it, I think this track will eventually become amazing. Why? I really like the theme here, and the design has good potential. This inspires even someone like me to make a remake, even though mine wouldn't be that good. I think HackerCop has something going here, and if it were just cleaned up enough, it'd be really good, I can tell. But wait.
No? Oh, what? Oh!
An ultra shortcut? That's what I thought at first, but actually this skips no key checkpoints. Technically we do skip one, but that's because it was put on a path switch that we aren't going through, so it's a key checkpoint that we didn't have to hit. So this isn't an ultra shortcut, but it is a pretty big unintended one that you can even do shrimless, and would count the lap online too. Anyways, I'm feeling a 1.5 out of 10 for this one. Lots of potential here, but this track is just not ready to be raced on in its current state. The next track by HackerCop is Thwomp Meadows. The overview describes this as HackerCop's 2nd custom track. It features 126 Thwomps, under which is a stone speed boost. There are also 15 lava geysers and a huge statue of Bowser in the center, which the author is considering to shrink. You have to drive under the Thwomps to get the speed boost, as everything else is off-road. This sounds interesting. Let's just try it.
Oh, what? No? Oh, what? Oh,
Oh my god, this is amazing. For real though, this is fun. I enjoyed playing this. Sure, it has issues, but this is a great challenge track. It knows what it's trying to be. It's not going for an amazing CTGP track, it's just a track to have fun with. The background texturing and the whole theme itself is great, even though the Moo Meadows music doesn't really fit. This track would be insane on Item Rain, and picture this. Battle stage. Boom. Perfect. But there are issues I have, main one being the lag, though for some reason not as much as his previous track. I wouldn't know how to fix it personally, but it's not a game-changing issue, it just hinders the track quite a bit. The track is also sort of blind. You have to rely on the minimap, which isn't the best for design. but it is really easy to pick up after a few tries. You do start on the off-road in TTs, but it doesn't really matter because it's the only shroom spot anyway, and the textures on the track don't really make much sense, like the boost panel. I can see if you don't want it to be completely obvious where they are, but it would make a lot more sense had they been the normal texture. And the starting position isn't angled. That's all the technical issues I have, but this isn't really going to score terrible for me. Yes, it's not going to be CTGP worthy, but it wasn't going for that, which makes it a little more respectable in my opinion. I'm feeling a 5 out of 10 for this one, lots of fun to play. I see the replayability here, just nothing to take to other actual distributions. If the lag was fixed, then I would reconsider, but currently, no. And the last track by HackerCop is Perplexus. The overview describes this one as HackerCop's first custom track. It is based on the game of the same name. The track reflects the game itself by having lots of extreme bends, drops, and being over 50 kilometers high. I'm not really sure what the original Perplexus is, but my review will stay the same regardless. Let's try it out. Well, hopefully the original Perplexus wasn't this laggy. Sorry, I had to cut over the gameplay, but my god, there's so much lag, and I have no clue where it's coming from. So I just have to do an editor's note. There wasn't an update to the Perplexus track, but I said, well, hopefully the original Perplexus wasn't this laggy, assuming it was based off a video game. It is not based off a video game, it is based off a 3D maze ball that you hold in your hand in real life. It's an actual product. It is not a video game. They don't lag. I feel like such an idiot. Definitely the most out of all of his tracks. Along with that, nothing is trickable, the track is confusing, and there's no fall boundary. I can say the creator himself has potential to make good tracks, but I guess he's just too ambitious. This would be a lot better without the lag. I'm feeling a 0.5 out of 10. The lag makes it unplayable, it'd be around a 4 without it. And finally, for May 6th, we got an update to Peak Garden by NikoPlays and Kai8594. Currently in version 4.0 and made completely from scratch. I've seen older versions, and they were definitely dated, so I'm interested to see what this remake is like. This immensely improves on the older versions. Now, it feels like a very functional and well thought out track. This drive's pretty good. I think the design is what carries it for me personally. I think the difficulty is pretty good with good shortcuts, objects, and enemies scattered throughout the course. Sure, the visuals aren't anything to gawk at, but I think it's reached the point where the visuals are fine enough to where you can just focus on the design itself. Though I do have to mention the wall texture, as it caught me completely off guard, and I'm still not sure if that was the right choice, because honestly it just looks like a road to me. But I think some visual improvements could go a long way and make this a really good track, along with another look at the checkpoints, baby, because we got another ultra shortcut. I was not expecting one to be here, but for some reason I was able to trigger the checkpoints from the other side. There was a fall boundary but it wasn't close enough. Maybe with the fall boundary positioned a little closer, that would just fix it. But yeah, I got a sub 1 minute time on this track. Regardless, the shortcut doesn't affect my opinion drastically. I still think it's a well-designed track. I'm thinking a 7 out of 10 for this one. It's good enough for other distributions, but could probably use some visual enhancements to be put in CTGP along with a few design tweaks. Moving on finally to May 7th, and there was a similar amount of activity, though only one track that interested me. The track is Flameice Lagoon by Bulzeeb. The overview is very long, but it says it was made after a long time of the author's inactivity. The track is placed on a big lagoon divided into 2 parts by a very tall mountain with some caves where racers begin. Racers jump first in the fire section with some fire snakes, lava piles, fire bars, and flamethrowers. After that, they go inside a second cave to go out in the ice section with a mountain that has a snow slip, snow piles with surprises, shy guys that skate, and moving freezies. This track is inspired by Hailfire Peaks from Banjo-Tooie. Currently, the author needs help to complete the track. Not much else to say, so let's dive in.
Oh, what? Oh! Oh, That's you! Hey! Yahoo! Yo! Hey! Yo! Come on!
If this surprised you, you probably aren't familiar with Bulzeeb. This is on par with a lot of tracks that he's made, very campy heavy and very difficult. Let's start with the positives. It is eye-catching and memorable, I'll give it that. Honestly, the idea for the theme itself is not bad. I see a fire and ice track working very well, and some of the objects used in this track are very nice, like the lava pile at the start, which is probably my favorite. As you might have guessed though, there are quite a few negatives. This track is littered with questionable design choices, lack of boost panel indication, the turn into the pipes being completely blind, the ramp twisting section is very strange, the 180-degree turns in the snow section are basically impossible, and the last 270-degree turn is very awkward. Not to mention the typical Bulzeeb texturing being not so appealing and the lag. It's unfortunate because I really like the idea behind this, and if he does get help updating this or if a remake comes by, I can see it being an insanely well made track. Like Bowser's Ghost Valley, I'm inspired to want to make this track too, and I don't even make tracks often. But in its current state, it wouldn't work well in the pack, and oh, why do I have the Magic Cruiser on? Well, I guess it could help with the ice section and wait. Oh no. Oh no. Yes, there's an ultra shortcut here and it's pretty easy to do. Surprisingly, there are only 3 key checkpoints, but yeah, I finished the whole track in 55 seconds and 999 milliseconds. That was pretty cool. Not much else to say though. I'm feeling a 7.5 out of 10 for this one. I see lots of potential, but this track has too many weird design choices and lag for me to want to consider to other distributions. I do hope it gets finished though. Moving on to the 8th, and the activity was dying down a bit, though there were 4 custom tracks released that I want to talk about, so let's just get this over with. 3 of them were made by a guy named MK James, and there are also his first 2 tracks. It's very interesting to see all these players debut with track creations despite how long the community has been around. His first track is Good Egg Raceway, which the overview describes as based on the Good Egg Galaxy from Super Mario Galaxy. While I love Super Mario Galaxy, it's been forever since I last played it, and the Galaxy name doesn't ring a bell. Hopefully the track can remind us of that wonderful game though, so let's take a look. There's an interesting theme going on in this track. It does give me some faint Super Mario Galaxy vibes, and I do see some potential for a great track, but as you might have guessed, I don't think this is all too great in its current state. The first issue is the road in 2D, which isn't that big of an issue, but you can't see it from the other side, which can be a little annoying. Plus, it being flat doesn't look that good in the first place. The second issue is texturing. You probably noticed it too. The textures are very small in the BRES, like 32 by 32 pixels, which is not that good and makes this look very washed out, especially the Galaxy itself. The road is a higher quality texture, but it's not a power of 2, so that's why it is glitching in game. The track also features long straightaways, no fall boundaries until the very bottom. There's a custom skybox, but James didn't make a bottom for it. The island's collision is quite buggy, and there are 2 item box sets. 2 sets for a track that usually reaches 50-second laps. That's a big issue. Lots of weird glitches and stuff I could comment on, but I will say that I could see this working as a really good track. It just isn't the best driving-wise at the moment. I'm feeling a 2.5 out of 10 for this one. Potential is there, but still not the best visually or design-wise. Okay, James's next track would be titled Rainbow Road. The overview says, well, everything I just told you, so let's look at the track, I guess. So yeah, I don't have much to say. This definitely comes off as unfinished and looks like the last. Well, for one, the choice of replacing Meadows was interesting. I think this track shows that having background elements is important. The shroomless cut is nice, but there aren't any shroom cuts, so it's sort of run heavy. I do like how making the surfaces trickable was considered, but the track itself is awkward to drive at points, and that's all there really is to the track. Also, most of the design issues from the last carry over. Sure, a complete remake could save it, but sorry to sound cynical, I don't really see the potential. I'm feeling a 3 out of 10 for this one. Higher than the last, but if James was watching this video, I'd tell him to work on the last one instead. This one doesn't have a lot going for it. Moving on to the last MK James track, and it's titled Rainbow Road 2. James, you absolute savage, releasing a sequel of a track on the same day as the original? The overview does say it is a short Rainbow Road-esque track where it starts off like a modern Rainbow Road track, but it slowly gets more retro as the lap goes on. Sounds like an interesting idea, let's see how well it's executed.
Oh, what? No. Oh.
So yeah, this is similar to the first, and it has the same issues. No ground on the skybox, two-dimensional roads, no textures, no shortcuts, no fault boundary, and only 2 item box sets. But in terms of potential that these tracks have, I'd say this one is better than the first. It's simple, the design could work, and I could see a complete visual overhaul making this a very good track. It's not the worst driving-wise. There are still a few design choices that I don't fully agree with, but it isn't terrible. I'm hoping that James can continue to improve in the future, and I'm feeling a 4 out of 10 on this one. This track works as a track more than the others, but in terms of interest, this is a little better than the first Rainbow Road, and not as interesting as Good Egg Raceway. And the last track I want to discuss from the 8th is Piranha Temple by, I'm just going to say Luxas. The overview says it's his first custom track. The track is a compact layout where the racers drive around a temple filled with piranha plants. There are no shadows as of now, which the author needs help with for a future version. So yeah, we're seeing another person debut the first track all in the same week. It's actually crazy. Let's take a look at the track. So, I see a lot of potential coming from Luxas here. This is a very strong debut track to show off his skills. This track is incredibly ambitious for a starter, and I have to commend the creator for it. Let's start with the positives. This has a good, unique theme. A Piranha Temple is a pretty interesting idea that I haven't seen attempted all too much, even though this might be more of a castle. There's also really good use of KMP. I actually went into the KMP expecting a mess because I knew a track like this would be difficult to work with, especially as a first track, but I was very pleasantly surprised at how articulated it was. I fully expected an ultra shortcut, but I don't think there is, and the objects are very well placed. The shortcuts are good here too, though the one I showed off that cuts off the U-turn was probably unintentional. And this track has an amazing length. It does not overstay its welcome and doesn't end as soon as it starts. Now let's dive into the issues. The textures were the first thing I noticed. While this track has its own identity, the textures that Luxas chooses to use are very bright and saturated, and I don't think that's what he should be going for because it's a little unappealing as it is. I don't think he has to redo all the textures, but mainly the walls that look a little glitched out could be fixed. I also think the track has a few design flaws and drives awkwardly at points, such as the beginning, which is a little strange. The turn out of the trickable room is sort of difficult to pull off well, and there are tight turns like the one going into the cannon. Speaking of the cannon, I like the idea, but for one, when you trick you hit an invisible wall, which is a little annoying, and the drop-off spot from the cannon is a little awkward and can be confusing on a first run. Despite all of the areas that could be improved, I am very impressed. This is a promising debut track coming from Luxas, and I hope that he continues to improve on his craft. I sadly just don't think this track in particular is pack ready, and the score will reflect that, but I do think he has a lot of potential as a creator. I'm feeling a 5 out of 10 for this one. Hopefully Luxas takes this track as a learning opportunity and makes his next track amazing, because at his current pace, I'm sure he'll become a really good creator. Moving on to the 9th, there was a little more activity, but the one track I want to focus on is Castle Adventure by Taz Reese. The overview states that this track traverses through 3 different stages from Super Mario 64, the Castle Grounds, Coco Mountain, and Jolly Roger Bay. The track uses power stars from the original game to act as cannons and indications on where to drive. It sounds like a very interesting idea, so let's see it in action. I have never played Super Mario 64, I'm sure I said that before and I'll say it again, but this idea is incredibly smart and the execution behind the idea is very solid as well. This track has an amazing theme, and I think this is one of the better tracks from made. The unfortunate thing, however, is that those elements have less of a blow due to a few key design flaws that you can get past after playing a few times that are not intuitive on a first run. Mainly the Coco Mound part is a little because of some of the awkward turns. I do also have to mention the ending of Jolly Roger Bay doesn't really tell you where to go. If you just go straight, you do hit the cannon, but you don't see the star and nothing tells you to go right, which is a little confusing. And while I don't have an issue with this, it might be worth it to fence off a few areas, mainly in the castle grounds, so people don't get confused on where to go. Other than that though, I love driving this track. This remains visually interesting throughout the whole course, and the length is amazing for a track like this. 2 laps was very smart. I'm feeling an 8 out of 10 for this one. I do think this would be a good inclusion for CTGP, but I doubt it will be picked up. I do think this is a very strong track for other established distributions though. So there was a version 1.1 update to Castle Adventure on the 16th. It says it fixed the lighting and it altered the skybox color, but I didn't really have any issues with the visuals itself. The issues were more design centric, so my review score stays the same basically. Moving on to the 10th, we got one track release I was a little interested in covering, mainly due to a track released the next day, but this is RMX Choco Island 1 by Noya. The overview describes it as a direct port of the original for Mario Kart Tour, which is what the RMX means. There was another version of the exact track released a day after, so I wanted to compare the two. Let's start with this though. Realize I've not played Mario Kart Tour, so I can't really compare the two to the original, but I don't imagine the textures were like this in the original. I know why that happened though. The textures are not Power of 2s, so that's why they glitch out. I mean, the track works in Mario Kart Wii, but it's just not the most exciting. To me, it's like a GBA port or a SNES port. It's just like, okay. The only quote-unquote issue I have, I guess, is the dirt doesn't really convey that you can actually drive on it shroomless. Maybe another texture would work better. I'm feeling a 6 out of 10 for this one. If the textures were fixed, it would be higher, and then I could see it being used in distributions. It's a very easy fix too. So this port did get an update. It was released on May 16th, and what it says is remade course model and collision, added shadow map, changed Piranha plant and item box textures, and attempted to fix texture glitches. I'm pretty sure the course model and collision is relatively the same as to the original. I haven't played it, but I have seen a screenshot, and I'll actually show it on the screen right now. It does fix the issues that I brought up with the texturing, but the issue of it being just not that interesting of a track, well, it can't really be fixed because it's based off a Mario Kart Tour track that just isn't really that interesting. So if I were to rate it, I would still probably go a 7 out of 10 or 7.5 out of 10. I think Noya has done as good as he could on this. I don't think it can really be improved much further without a bunch of creative liberties coming from the author. Moving on to the 11th, low quantity wise, but it had two interesting tracks to me. The first is the release and update of Luigi's Lakeside by Koopa Hacks. The overview says it is inspired by GBA Luigi Circuit and GBA Riverside Park, and also uses many assets from those tracks. Let's take a look gander at the course.
What? No! Oh!
not sure about this one. I mean, it's fine as it is. It's functional, it's a good idea, and I do like the skybox and rain effect that Koopa Hacks chooses to use. It just feels dated, and I'm aware that's what Koopa Hacks likes to go for. I know he's made paint tracks in 2020, but this one does have potential, and I want to see it improve and become more modern. It just feels empty. Not many background elements, some turns are tight, the track is long, it could use better texturing, there's a pretty big shortcut that's very easy to do, and you can get stuck on the wall. That part doesn't matter too much, but it is still something to note. Yeah, it's fine as it is. I would love to see it modernized though. I'm feeling a 5.5 out of 10 for this one. I guess it'd work in a pack, but I do think the design should be improved with added elements to make this more interesting. So this is the last update. Luigi's Lakeside had a version 1.0 update on May 18th, but the only thing that changed was updated shaders apparently. And while I did bring up the visuals, it wasn't the shaders specifically, it was more of the background, and most of my criticisms were in the design itself, so my review stays the same, basically. And on the 11th, we got Armax Tropo Island 1 by Toxic Prime, with a subsequent KCL update from Billy Noodles. The overview states it features shadows and custom item boxes. I wanted to compare this version to Noya's that was released a day before, though Toxic Prime labeled this as a remake while Noya labeled this as a port, so they both serve different purposes. Let's take a look.
What? No? Oh!
Comparing the two, this is definitely the looker. The visuals are impressive and suit the track well, making it look unique but not too foreign in a sense. I like how Toxic Prime treated the dirt as opposed to Noya's version, with it actually being soft off-road that you still want to avoid. It's fun to play, and I think this would work well aligned to give interesting races. All my criticism for this track is slight tweaks that if Toxic Prime wanted to, he could fix pretty easily. First is the buggy camera at the start that I already mentioned, which is a very easy fix, so it won't affect the score too much. There's that one turn though that is a little blind and hard to pull off without knowing it's there. Since this is a remake, I'd encourage Toxic Prime to take creative liberty and either lower the ramp or extend the turn out a little more, especially since it wasn't a problem in Noya's version. There's also a long period of no item boxes from the first to the second set. This is where they place currently, and here's where I would place them. And the visuals are a little bugged in a few places, with the shadow mapping being a little off I believe, but still not any more than Noya's version. I think it's decent, nothing amazing or that I'd really love to come back to, but it'd definitely work in other packs, and I don't think its inclusion in CTGP would be too far-fetched. I'm feeling a 7.5 out of 10 on this one. Hopefully Toxic Prime does choose to make those tweaks because that will make it honestly CTGP worthy in my opinion. This would definitely interest a crowd of people wanting the inclusion of Mario Kart Tour tracks. Moving on to the 12th, we saw quite a bit of activity, but none of it I really wanted to talk about. Moving on to the 13th, however, and there was a release that caught my eye. The last release I wanted to talk about in this video. It's a track by ZPL titled Into the Matrix. The overview describes it as inspired by an unreleased custom track from XBlue98, known as EGAD's Computer. I have not seen that track, but alas, a track is a track, so let us make haste towards CTGP. I don't know why I said it like that, let's just go. An interesting track to end off on, I'll say the least. The theming here is insane. The visuals are stunning and the layout itself is decent enough for the track. I'm very impressed. Sadly, there are a few glaring issues that lots of people have already pointed out in his comments, but I will say them again in the video. First is, yeah, you just can't see far enough as you should be able to. I'm not sure if this is an easy fix or not, where you can just set a number or something, but hopefully it is. Right now, it's like every turn's blind. There's also some weird out of bounds on the track itself, which I don't really understand. Also, the fall boundary does take a while to kick in sometimes. Not a huge fan of the triggable square, and it's not just because I'm a wheeler. And yeah, there are no shortcuts, which makes this very one heavy. I'm hoping for the future of this track because I'm sure SZBL will continue to improve it, and eventually this is going to be a really amazing track, I'm sure of it. At the moment though, it's not very intuitive, and I wouldn't put this in any packs just yet. But still, stunning visuals, and I am impressed. I know it's harsh, but I'm feeling a 6.5 out of 10 on this one. If CPL continues to update this track though, I'm sure it'll reach the 9 out of 10 mark at the very least. And that's all the tracks I wanted to cover for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching the whole way through. If you liked it, a like would be appreciated, and a sub as well. And I'll see you in the next video.